Hey guys, here to talk about director Terrence Malick. He's one of the biggest enigmas and wonders in Americana filmmaking, honestly. I've never seen a director quite like him as far as just general style and approach. It kind of mirrors like what Andre Tarkovsky was doing, but it's very much a Malick. Malick really paved his own language entirely with his films. They're very gorgeous visually. I mean, it's one of the most gorgeous films you'll ever see. And I feel like he was always striving for a poetic experience. I think that might be what makes him a polarizing director. I think in the end he is favoring a poetic jolt over entertainment value. Although I would say his films are generally very entertaining, he does land great entertainment value. Don't get me wrong, but sometimes I think in the end he really is just kind of wanting you to, yeah, he wants to kind of change your life a little. I always feel like, that's, yeah, love or hate it. I love it for the most part. Occasionally it's supposed to get a little too far into Wonderland, but I think for the most part he is, when he hones it down, like which the majority of his films do, he's a masterful director. Let's get into his filmography. Badlands. It came out in 1973. That was his first massive film he made, and he had a little bit of work under him beforehand. But this is the first film that really stood out. It's fantastic. It's a great study of just this like romantic chemistry between this cold-hearted sociopath and just this young, naive woman who just gets into this situation over falling in love with her. Yeah, just a hot, crazy guy, basically. It reminds me a lot of the foundation that Bonnie and Clyde laid out, but I think this one takes it to even better places by way of better directing. Just the dynamics between the characters are just so interesting. I really appreciate its commentary on warped celebrity worship in a lot of things. How, it's like, it's funny how a man can just be this loudly into deep nihilistic violence and still just like, hey man, this guy's so like it's like it literally doesn't even matter to this extent of naivety. I really think that's explored in such a great way. It's hilarious, kind of. It's a dark comedy for sure. And I feel like Malick never was this much of a dark comedian ever to get to. This is very unique for him. The directing is just like, holy moly. I mean, right off the bat, he really hones in on his vision. For a film that feels very summertime, this is very much a summer atmosphere. Yeah, just kind of summer of love gone bad, basically. It's amazing. Days of Heaven. He made this 5 years later in the year 1978. I would honestly, genuinely believe that every frame of this film is perfect. I think Malick really honed in on something fantastic here. The first time I saw it, I thought it was too airy, but as I rewatch it more, I just really appreciate its gritty story. It doesn't even seem too considerate as much as the nature surrounding it. That's what makes it unique. But the story is like kind of just like worthless, dumb drama, kind of surrounding the beauty of nature, just kind of like a greater good, you could say. And I think the entire film just does a really natural job at just kind of like a looming sense of tragedy over the characters. It's like, well, it literally is kind of like you just smell the roses a little more, all this would have happened, just see through things. So you can realize just how dumb most of your drama really is, honestly. Yeah, it's perfect. The world isn't for you, but you got to make the most of it. That's kind of, I think, a takeaway of the film as well. It's like I think that you kind of come out of that one really just appreciating that, like, just turn to nature, and that'll guide you to where you need to be in the long term. Not just letting anger get to the best of you. It's like it happens, but you can always hone it to something of a greater good, and give it to a greater good. Let that take you to better places rather than, repeating the violent behavior. This is a film that really explores that in a great way. It's just special. I think Morricone's soundtrack is perfect too. I mean, he really nailed something with the Sergio Leone films, and he really brought that to just a very pure Americana, just as well as he did in the film Once Upon a Time in America. It's a very beautiful film, just very naturally immersive with its just kind of weird and dark story. It's a great, perfect masterpiece. So what's interesting about Malick is after the 70s, he took a 20-year hiatus. So all the way through the 80s and majority of the 90s, he wasn't even on the platform as a director. He was out apparently just studying, retreating to a lot of philosophy and being a professor. He was a teacher for a long time, college professor. So the film that I really love the most by him, this is my favorite film he made. He made this in 1998. It's called The Thin Red Line. I think this is his masterpiece because it is his ultimate balance of beauty of nature and corruption of man. And it just literally takes you through like the highest of highs, lowest of lows. It's like a summation of every war film ever made in a weird way. It really feels like a little everything is covered here. And I really think this is one of his ultimate masterpieces. The cinematography kind of hurts how crazy good a lot of it is because it really does balance out just a lot of just horrible violent behavior from people. They're at the Guadalcanal this setting. And of course, that's a beautiful location. But oh man, like the violence is just some of the most horrible you'll see outside of like Apocalypse Now. But the film is just very well balanced. It's so well paced. The screenplay is very tight. Like you can really, it's really crazy that it's the same guy who made the previous two mentioned films, because this is a very Americana like horror kind of energy kind of coming out of him that wasn't looming as much in the other two films. This one has more of a and just like ensemble cast too. Like he really juggles so much. Like this is such a granddaddy epic. Like Days of Heaven and Badlands just had more intimacy. This is very epic. Almost like in the way of a film like Magnolia or Boogie Nights, PTA or young PTA film, but this is like a granddad take on it. This is all war and serious. It's perfect. It really does get into just the dilemma of just all kinds of personalities as they're thrown into a war landscape. You know, you get all kinds, and I feel like this film just takes on every kind of person you could possibly imagine, everything bad that could possibly happen, and it's just told in the most gracefully cinematic way. You feel like you're kind of up in heaven looking at hell on Earth in a lot of ways. It's perfect. So yeah, then he kind of took another hiatus up to 2005. He made The New World, which is essentially just like kind of his telling of the story of Pocahontas, a Native American newfound discovery of America. It's a really amazing movie. I think that I need to see it again to better absorb a lot of its atmospheric details and character beats. But I was really impressed by just the sense of it's a similar theme that Malick always is exploring. But I think this is just fascinating because this is just an important piece, I would say, in the end. Like I really do think it is an important exploration of newfound discovery and what that does to a man's spirit. It's overwhelming in a lot of ways. I think the film just feels overwhelming to me in the end. That's what I love so much about it. Like it jolts something in me. I feel excited, and then I feel very devastated whenever something of that exciting of a jolt just can't hold up in time. You know, and that's very much of a tragedy, but it's done so beautifully. I'm gonna have to cue that up very soon because talking about that sounds perfect. That's a perfect movie. The director's cut especially. Then we got The Tree of Life. Now this is the one I know everyone loves or hates this movie. The director's cut is what really I think brings out the mastery of it. I'm gonna say I'm in the love it category. I'm not gonna say it's as perfect as any of the films I mentioned before outside of Badlands. I think this film has at times maybe one of the greatest films ever made, but I do think it does actually get too airy in moments. I do think that it could have used a slight bit of tightening to be on the same level as a film like 2001: A Space Odyssey. I think that there's just a lot of films that have done this in a more grounded manner. I think that it's almost just a little bit too far into airhead mode. For me personally, because I'm already an airhead, so I like it when films can ground me a little bit better. That's kind of what I'm looking for in the first place, and I think I've just realized that as I'm this deep into directing a film now, like it really makes sense to me. And none of this is to critique any of the sincerity behind this film. I think this film is 100% sincere, masterful. Special effects are honestly about as great as you saw in 2001: A Space Odyssey. It's just kind of taken through a completely different lens and a lot more of an emotional angle coming through it. Again, it just feels like I feel like if it were just a little more tightly paced, I think there would have been a perfect film here. But I think, the editing, it just got a little bit too far into Wonderland. I think about every film he would make throughout the 2010s would kind of suffer from this. There's a lot of optimism looming over this film. I really feel a sense of wonder, of optimism, kind of childlike wonder. I love the beats between the characters. Like the O'Brien characters just have like light and dark chapters, but it all feels very innocent in the end. I think that's the beautiful part about it. I love Brad Pitt, and he's very harsh, he's very strict, but you understand him. It's like, okay, like this guy had a lot of struggle, a lot of heat under, stress under him, without any kind of healthy outlet. And they got Jessica Chastain, she's just this perfect Wonder Woman, and then it's like as she goes through all these situations, you can kind of see a certain loss of innocence, something rotten kind of is kicking in with her as time passes. But every single thing about their family is just so innocent next to the cosmos. I think that's what it's trying to say. And it's ultimately trying to say that death can be understood by basically, just being into that cosmos, in a lot of ways. That can kind of help you conquer about anything if you really believe in that. Then he made, so we got a couple of films that are just nowhere near the level of any of the films I mentioned previously. So he made To the Wonder the next few years later, 2013. This film honestly felt very rushed. You can really tell that he was after The Tree of Life. He really believed in the vision he found in that and just almost went too excessive in my mind. Like, it's beautiful, but it's very boring, I would say, because it's so airy. And what I mean by airy is I think the issue is I see airy as, I'm not saying Malick isn't up his ass director. Like, you can say, I know a lot of people would say that. I don't believe he is. I believe his vision is sincere enough. But I will say that airiness in general, to me, just on a personal level, kind of speaks like speaking out of it would be like speaking out of your ass a little bit. as far as my taste. I think I'm looking for films that just really don't feel like that at all. I think Malick had that perfectly with his earlier films, but he really did kind of fall into something. Maybe that just happened as he got older as a director, so that's kind of interesting. Night of Cups, he made that years later also. It's a little better than To the Wonder. I think this one has a character to ground these ideas around. Like a lot of these ideas just hover in the air, and it's like, what do I make of this? Like, I don't know why I care. Like, it's just not that interesting. Just kind of wondering philosophy. It's just very personal to one man's spiritual journey. But it's like, how does this affect other people? It doesn't really. I feel like. But this one kind of is more interesting because it's like, here's a man who's wondering, who's endlessly curious, but at least you kind of get in his shoes and can kind of just see where he's a little bit off in his thinking. In the end, it's like he has a very detached way. Like he sees through, like he kind of something of a third eye, but something's always missing because of this knowing. But he always finds a way in the end. Like, it's interesting. And then he made Song to Song. This is the best, I think, of this kind of three films that just hit me like, oh, it was just airy. This one's a little better because it does have the same issue, but at least it has the music setting surrounding it. I think that the music setting makes this film very colorful and just very consistent all around as far as entertainment value. I think there's a lot of entertainment value. It's got a great ensemble cast too. I mean, I love Rooney Mara in this, Ryan Gosling, Michael Fassbender. Yeah, they're all great in this movie. There's a lot of good music moments. Just it does have. There's a certain lightness to it that I really enjoy. It reminds me of like a French New Wave, Jean-Luc Godard kind of film. Yeah, and then the last one today that I saw was just The Hidden Life. Oh man, one of the most resonating films as far as what he made, but it has the same set as The Tree of Life, in that it just has about, I would say even more so, honestly. Like it's about an hour that just feels way too airy. Like I get the tragedy is looming. Maybe it's a little more necessary here in a storytelling link, but it's emotional, but it's not that rewatchable. Like it's a film I really don't want to rewatch, but the power is stuck with me very strongly enough to consider it a masterful film overall. But yeah, just a little editing. I think he gets a little airy. I see it in myself, so I think it just makes me slightly like the bigger eye on that in other directors now too. That I love, and I can see the Malick. Although he's a masterful director all around, he still deserves to be hailed as a genius for what he's done because he really had an eye that's unique, and his sense of wonder that he possesses through his filmmaking. It's really like brave in a sense. Like he is a true poet through film, and he's a great one to look up to. So yeah, that's Malick.